It is Sunday, December 4th. I'm Ronica Cleary. We got Tom Fitzgerald here, and Jessie Jane Duff, retired U.S. Marine, a senior fellow with the London Center for Policy Research, joining us this morning as well. Let's talk about what's trending on the trail. Well, Donald Trump, everyone's talking about it. He's filling his cabinet. The most recent announcement, I'm eager to hear your take on this, retired General James Mad Dog Mattis will be the president-elect's Secretary of Defense. General Mattis had a career in the Marine Corps for nearly 40 years. He served as the commander of the United States Joint Forces Command and also replaced General David Petraeus as the head of Central Command. Now, here's what Trump had to say about him during the surprise announcement this week.
He's the closest thing to General George Patton that we have, and it's about time.
But could there be an issue preventing him from becoming Secretary of Defense? We are looking forward to hear your take on this. Obviously, there's talk about the fact that he is not a civilian, would be the first to lead this department and have this military background. But I know Marines are really excited about this.
We're ecstatic. First of all, General Mattis's reputation within the military and the Marine Corps has been a bar-none, holds-back-on-nothing leader, and we need that. Instead, we've had a poodle in the Defense Department. We're now going to get a pit bull, and that's what we need. When you go to guard your house, you better have a man who knows what he needs to keep this country safe, and General Mattis has a proven record of doing that.
So, Jessie Jane, how does it work as far as, though, in the military, this idea that, you know, Mattis is a guy who I would say is revered to the point of, you know, some Marines look at him as a messiah in some ways. I mean, if you ever, you know, there's a Facebook page called The Marines of Helmet Promise. Yeah. And I urge anybody to go check this out. It is both real life and hysterical at the same time. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Mattis is their central figure. But are the qualities that make a good battlefield commander, which clearly he is, the same qualities that you want in somebody to run a Defense Department? Or
absolutely.
Will he be out of his element?
Not at all. And the reason I say this is he wasn't just a battlefield commander. You don't hit 4 stars by just being in battle. The reality is he understands what the troops face every day. He would go into the foxholes with the junior Marines just to hear how they were and spend the night with them in the mud, in the dirt, or during live fire. And with that concept, he understands what it takes to motivate and inspire people to do things they would not normally do. That's a definition of a great leader.
There have been some concerns, though, about this rule that you have to be out of the military for at least 7 years. This has happened before, so if this happens, this won't be the first time. But it's been a long time. Right. You know, so what is your take on these concerns that people raised about this mix between the fact that there should be civilian control over the military and that if we're turning people over too quickly, then that we're basically handing the car keys back to the military when it's supposed to be civilian control of the Department of Defense?
Well, this is a very reasonable concern, absolutely, but we're not talking about just an average general. We're not talking about a politician who is handling procurement.
Well, apparently he's Patton.
Apparently. Actually,
do Marines like that, though, when he calls that?
No, he's our new Chesty Puller.
Patton's an Army general.
No, General Puller is our infamous, amazing general. This is it. He wasn't in charge of procurement, so he doesn't have conflicts of interest with negotiations for contracts. Right. He didn't financially benefit off of the military. We need this in the Pentagon because we have gotten down to pre-World War II levels, and this is a man who understands strategically what it takes to win wars on all fronts.
Not too many generals, though. You're talking about Mike Flynn. You know, as you know, in the White House handling intelligence. You possibly now we're hearing, you know, could be looking at David Petraeus as a possible Secretary of State. Then you've got General Mattis at the Pentagon. You know, you got 3 generals. Is that too many generals?
First of all, I don't think it'll be General Petraeus. He was too loyal to Obama. He was too loyal to Hillary Clinton. And he said that global warming is the greatest threat to the United States. I think that contradicts the entire message of the Trump campaign. But General Flynn, I appreciate, because both General Flynn and General Mattis were fired by Obama because they stood up to him. And I need a commander-in-chief who can have somebody come to him and say, no, you're doing it wrong.
Stanley McChrystal seems absent from this conversation for some reason, and he was a renowned commander in Afghanistan, was removed after those comments in Rolling Stone magazine. Why isn't McChrystal part of this conversation?
Maybe he has pulled himself out. Maybe he's enjoying retirement. There is life after the
Let's
You're generally okay with
the
this.
other cabinet picks that we're talking about. In the last 24 hours, there's been talk that Giuliani and Romney no longer part of this Secretary of State conversation. That actually doesn't surprise me. I was actually thinking back on just watching all of this unfold today and really kind of remembering Donald Trump's selection process for the vice president and how there were these people that were being considered that I really never thought were being considered. What is your take on that? And now reports that Huntsman may be in the mix. I actually think that seems quite possible, especially because of his history as ambassador to China. What is your take on that?
Huntsman is probably an excellent choice, along with Bolton. Ambassador Bolton was incredibly difficult and hard on the State Department because of the abuses that they had allowed. And I think that's a good place to start to clean up the house. So I'm glad to hear that Romney's out of the mix. It just simply, to me, felt like you're bringing a fox into the hen house. What he did to try to defy Donald Trump through all the way to Election Day. Why
do you think that he even entertained it so much? I feel that people write Donald Trump off as not being nearly as strategic as he is. What could have been, or Tom, you could weigh in on this as well. What was the point?
I think it actually engages the man so that he won't be your enemy further. He doesn't need to go into the White House and have Romney still soliciting all of this negative energy and attention. They had to get to know each other, and they really have. And hopefully he can be a valuable ally and compadre while he's in the... Pick up the phone and say, Donald, I disagree with this, versus going and doing a press conference.
If you will... Unifying the Republican Party, is it possible?
Oh, my goodness. We're so splintered up because we have, oh, my goodness, great question. I honestly think that the Democratic Party has more issues than we do because they seem to misunderstand why the voters voted for Donald Trump. They're calling us racist, homophobes, and all these other things. And the reality is that Americans wanted change. And what do? They put Nancy Pelosi right back into the House leadership role. We need a change, and the Democrats should understand that, too.
But if we're talking about, all right, we're talking about draining the swamp through the whole campaign. All right, so what are we bringing in here? We're bringing in Elaine Chao, who has served in previous administrations. We're bringing in, the governor of South Carolina. We're bringing in people who are establishment Republicans and not really quite out of the mainstream of what the Republican Party. Wasn't the Trump election all about upheaval? Wasn't it all about bringing in new blood? So what is all this old blood going on?
I wouldn't call Elaine Chao part of the problem in Washington, D.C., and nor would I call Nikki Haley.
For decades.
Right, absolutely, but I wouldn't call her part of the current problem that we have.
Majority
That's fine.
leader.
She did a great job in the position that she held.
But she's not part of the establishment?
I didn't say she's not part of the establishment. I don't think she's part of the problem. I think the problem has been the very people that have resisted change. And in the Washington, D.C. metro area where this is airing, all of us have to realize we benefit off of the government. That's why there was such a resistance to Donald Trump in Northern Virginia and Maryland. Our median income in this area is $89,000, while the rest of the nation is roughly around $49,000. There's a huge disconnect between us and the rest of the world, and we have to understand that. And when I campaigned for...
But
doesn't that look bad?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is true. But I have to agree with Tom.
But when he's bringing in Mitt Romney and when he's bringing in these
Mitt
other
Romney's
people,
not been selected. And we've got 4,000 appointees. You've got 4,000 appointees. You must bring in some people who have experience with dealing with Washington, D.C., and he's trying to unify the party. By blocking out those people who are from the past, who were successful, is almost ignorant, too. You want success with success.
At times, this drain the swamp looks a little more like frogs jumping around lily pads, because we keep seeing these people who are these career people. And Sarah Palin, who people loved to make fun of and love to mock. Sarah Palin came out with a very strong op-ed in the last 48 hours about the Carrier air conditioning deal, basically saying when she looked at what went on with Carrier and with the state of Indiana and with Mike Pence and Donald Trump, that she saw that as corporate cronyism. And Sarah Palin is the one right now, of all people, who seem to be picking up this mantle of saying we need to kind of keep the momentum going.
And I'm sorry, that's unfortunate, because the Americans whose jobs were saved sure as heck do not defy cronyism if it benefits Americans. When it benefits Americans, it's great. When it benefits politicians, it doesn't. When you had a campaign run by a woman who is benefiting off of Saudi Arabia and Qatar, that's a problem. When it benefits Americans and it benefits this country and it stimulates the economy, why are we throwing stones at it? She's right. There's going to always be an element of cronyism, but it must look at who it benefits versus who it's taking.
I would also argue that that's an effort
out of a cabinet job,
right? And Palin is still
too.
attempting to be relevant. I wouldn't necessarily. Right. She did play herself out of a cabinet position, I think, and I don't think that she was ever truly being considered. But, Dom, let's talk about this whole Taiwan phone call, the tweets that followed.
Well, you know, in a lot of ways, some of this is still, you know, remains to be seen because we don't know who the Secretary of State is going to be. But what we do know is whoever that person is going to have to at least deal with some of the things that have been going on the last couple of weeks since his election. And in this case, Donald Trump speaking on the phone to the leader of Taiwan early this week. Now, we know, you know, since the mid-70s, we've had diplomatic relations with China. We have a one-China policy in this country. However, Donald Trump says, why don't we talk to these people? Why don't we have these conversations? And you know, when you think about it, maybe he has a point.
Well,
because where have we gotten with this idea that we don't talk to people that we don't agree with?
We turned our back on Taiwan in the 70s, and that was very unfortunate because that is a free economy with free people, and we turned and went to the communist country. Sure. Donald Trump is making a very clear statement. We need free economies and countries that can work with us, and if embracing Taiwan to enable that to happen, it's a good statement to the world.
You know, I had two thoughts when I was reading about this. First of all, we just had a president overturn a 50-year embargo to Cuba, right? Because he said it's not working, it's more of the same. And now we have a president-elect who you could argue is maybe taking a similar step to say, look, it's been decades of a policy that I don't see the purpose of, and suddenly it's highly criticized. So I just think that's very interesting to watch the reaction to it. And also, I want to look at this tweet. Obviously, he tweeted about how they called him first. But then he says, interesting how the U.S. sells Taiwan billions of dollars in military equipment, but I should not accept a congratulatory call. So more than the meaning of the tweet, we knew Donald Trump took to Twitter to help win this race. Now he is leading a conversation about policy via Twitter. And I just think it is fascinating to watch any conversation of I'm not going to tweet or I might let go of it during my campaign. That right there, talking about policy, it's not the end.
He's going to be the first tweeting president.
Yes.
We need to know.
Better or worse. I mean, you know.
But that's fine.
But, you know, maybe more tweets about this. Substantive issues than whether or not you like Alec Baldwin's impression of you.
I'm not going to wait. But you know what? Why should he change? This is what we elected.
Because it's silly.
So he got elected with
silly.
the same platform, and we don't want, the American people want somebody who's candid and upfront. I am quite confident that he's going to polish his style over time. But if he engages people and he has them talking about politics and has them engaging on the issues, that's a good thing.
Well, let's talk about the
We're going to move on. Yeah, we want to talk about the Democrats because you brought this up a minute ago. The Democrats, you know, while everybody was talking about how the Republican Party was fraying apart at the edges throughout this entire campaign, the Democrats are in a way right now, okay? Because Nancy Pelosi just staved off a challenge to her leadership. They are, you know, in flux right now because, you know, Tim Ryan from Ohio, he challenges her. She's been challenged before and dispensed with the challenges, but the Democrats kind of do not seem to know what direction they're going. We've had some voices from the past come up.
Right, and we're also looking at Howard Dean taking himself out as chair of the DNC, and then Bernie Sanders saying it's got to be Representative Elson, or that's sort of the only way forward. Let's listen to Howard Dean talk just a little bit about stepping back.
We cannot allow this to be a proxy fight between Bernie Sanders' people and Hillary Clinton's people. This party needs to start again, and we need to be together.
All right, Jessie Jane, you just came through a campaign where you saw Republicans go after Republicans. I know you're not in a position to want to give the Democrats any advice right now, but as a Republican, what would you say to them about what you just saw your party go through and why you feel you're in a better position right now as a Republican?
I would say shake it up. Quit going with what didn't work. Right. You're sticking with your old familiarities. The Clintons were the past, and you tried to make them the future. Why is it that it was predetermined that she would be your nominee? And Ellison, I'm sorry, he has radical ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, which has been on the terrorism watch list for 6 other countries, and it was only because of President Obama. It was not put on the terrorism watch list. I'm sorry, is this really what you want to do? Alienate more people? And Nancy Pelosi, she's from San Francisco. She doesn't relate to the rest of the world or the middle America.
Right.
But I will say this, that I fully understand and appreciate Bernie Sanders stepping into this, whether or not you agree with the person he's pushing forward, the frustrations of watching the disaster of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, followed by Donna Brazile, clearly working for insiders in the Democratic Party and not doing what they're supposed to do. Say what you want about Ellison. Sanders has every right to push forward in the way that he is and try to attempt to affect some change for millions of people who are behind him.
You know, he may have lost his ability to kind of topple Nancy Pelosi, but I thought Tim Ryan said a lot of important things that the Democrats probably should listen to, even though he was defeated. And that is, you have to stop looking at the electorate. You know, Hillary Clinton coined the basket of deplorables. But, you know, Ryan says that that's a lot of how the Democratic Party has viewed the electorate. A basket over here, a basket over there, a group over here, a group over there.
Right.
You need to come up with an overarching, unifying message, not just, you know, addressing individual groups of people.
I'm tired of identity politics because that's what's severing us and splintering us. I had never been accused of being a racist till this last election. What happened? The very same people that elected President Obama turned around and also elected Donald Trump. You're going to tell me in 8 years they all became racist? That's a false argument. It's a lousy argument, and it's when you have no substance anymore. Identity politics makes black people think one way, white people think one way, women think one way. I'm sorry, I'm a female, but I don't think like all women, and that's an insult to me and my character. We are Americans, red, white, and blue, and that is what can unify us for a common goal for freedom, a good economy, jobs for Americans, and protecting our borders. I think that's a common
I want to see an American flag draped behind your head
Absolutely.
right now. That was inspiring.
Yeah, thank you for being with us.
Jessie Jane Duff, we thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to come back. Fox 5 News on the Hill is Sunday morning, December 4th. We'll be right back.